everything I do in life, it sucks. Everything I do in life, it sucks. That's why when I was 300 pounds and 24 years old, it wasn't like I had some big epiphany of, let's just go be a Navy SEAL, let's lose some weight. No, I knew my entire life was going to be a struggle, which is why I just ignored it. And I said, I'm not even trying to jump off into this shit, how to become something I am not. But through that process, something happened to me. This is why I feel sorry for no one.
David Goggins is an incredibly fascinating individual with a life story that reads like the script from a Rocky Balboa film. The retired Navy SEAL, best-selling author, and YouTube no-nonsense motivator endured an abusive childhood and a learning disability early on. At age 19, he spent 4 years in the Air Force, but then struggled after being discharged, seeing his weight balloon from 175 to almost 300 pounds and feeling like he was in a dead-end job. At 24, he turned it around. He lost 100 plus pounds, became a Navy SEAL, and later also graduated from Army Ranger School. As an endurance athlete, he's completed over 60 ultramarathons, triathlons, and ultra-triathlons. At one time, held the world record for pull-ups in 24 hours with 4,030, and is the author of 2 best-selling books and has millions of followers on social media. He spent the past 2 decades carrying the torch of no-nonsense, stay-hard advice for countless millions through those books and social media outlets. If high intensity is your thing, you're likely a Goggins fan. I've been intrigued by him for years, as we've raced many similar events, and my PhD focused on the subject on which Goggins is most closely associated: mental toughness. In this special episode of the Catalyst 360 podcast, we'll be taking a closer look at the strategies Goggins admonishes, how the science supports and occasionally conflicts with his guidance, and what it might mean for you and your own life moving forward. Speaking of intensity, as you've already heard, this episode will include some brief clips of Mr. Goggins' interviews. His language is not exactly PG, so we wanted to let you know in advance, and maybe you'll want to skip this episode. I'm your host, Dr. Brad Cooper, CEO of Catalyst Coaching 360. Employers and EAPs know Catalyst from our exclusive focus on best-in-class, board-certified coaching for your employee team members, including our Catalyst Elite program for high performers and high-potential performers. Coaches know us as one of the top-rated MBHWC-approved coach certification training programs that dates way back to 2007. If you'd like information about Catalyst and the Catalyst commitment, reach out anytime. Results at catalystcoaching360.com or check out the website, catalystcoaching360.com. And now, let's take a closer look at David Goggins, his approach, and how we can apply the most valuable elements of his guidance in our lives. Toward the end, I'll also highlight a few questions I have about his approach that might spark some interesting thoughts to ponder for you as well. David Goggins has become a folk hero. The Urban Dictionary has even added the word Goggins as an expression used to describe someone who does a task in such an extreme manner, regardless of the pain and suffering, because they are just that awesome, hardcore, and committed to being the most badass MFer on the planet. Even Goggins regularly references himself in the third person, as if he's describing a superhero of sorts. He's not particularly fast as an athlete, something he himself notes when emphasizing his hard work over any natural talent. In looking over his race results from the past 2 decades, they read like most of the guys I've trained with over the years. Pretty solid for top age groupers, but certainly not competitive with professionals or elite performers. As an endurance athlete, he's good, not great. But that's likely part of the appeal. He's everyman in terms of ability, an everyman who just happens to look like a Greek god in some of his early Ultraman pics. He's a powerful communicator with strong charisma and a consistent, often needed message to just do the effing work. No excuses. He's essentially that Rocky Balboa in running shoes, except he's a real person whose life plays out in real time via modern day social media outlets.
You have to learn to train your mind well beyond motivation. If you have motivation, that's great. That's some kindling to the fire. All it takes is a little bit of fucking spark, you can burn a whole forest up. But motivation, you have to learn to exist without it. You have to be your best self when you're least motivated. And that's the tricky part about all that shit. Motivation is just a word. You have to have these different things in your mind on where you want to go and know that motivation is not going to get me there. Because I'm not going to always be motivated.
Goggins' guidance often mirrors concepts you've heard here on the podcast and elsewhere in the past. This one is a good example of how he emphasizes what we would term automation. Stepping forward because it's simply who you are rather than just something you do. That's critical for long-term success, and Goggins drives that point home in ways only he can do. Here are some of the consistent highlights you'll hear him emphasize, along with a few related thoughts that might be of value or might add to what you're hearing there. Number 1, embrace discomfort. Goggins advocates for voluntarily placing ourselves in challenging situations. He believes that growth occurs outside of our comfort zone, and facing adversity head-on is essential for personal development. We just, I think it was last month, released an evidence in action episode that discussed the anterior mid-cingulate cortex and how stepping into discomfort enhances our lives. So he definitely nailed the value of this one. Similarly, his 1-second decision concept mirrors the functional mental toughness future self strategy. And believe me, it is a powerful tool to add to your toolbox. Here's Goggins describing it.
What I do in that 1 second, because we all think about quitting when shit's hard. But what you have to do in that 1 second is hard to process information during pain. Because that pain takes over and you can't think rationally. Most people fail that 1 second. Let's not quit yet, Goggins. Let's fucking think about your options. Where are you going to end up if you quit this shit? Where are you going to go? What are you going to say to yourself? Because you know you're going to get warm. The second you get out of this water, you can take a shower and you're going to be warm. And in 5 days, you could be out. So I start thinking logically. I calm my brain down because your brain just wants to get the fuck out. Ring the bell, push your helmet down, get warm, and then you're really fucked. And these are the things you have to think about in the 1 second decision. So that's what that's all about. It's about gaining control of your mind, putting things back in the proper perspective, and then saying, I really do want to be here. And I'm going to have a bunch of these 1 seconds. And I have to learn to control these. Because if I fail one of these 1 seconds, I will not be a SEAL. I will not be a doctor. I will not be a lawyer. I will not be whatever the fuck it is. So that's how important that 1 second decision is. It's all about your mind takes control of you. You have to say, fuck you. I run this motherfucker.
Number 2, practice extreme ownership. Goggins emphasizes taking full responsibility for our lives and choices. By owning our actions and decisions, we gain control over our destiny and empower ourselves to overcome obstacles. He repeatedly emphasizes each of us have the key within us, but it's up to us, through unrelenting, no excuses hard work, to make it happen. Related to that is his concept of mission statement. Here he is discussing that.
I want to be the standard. I want to be that guy. Like every place I went in the military, there was this ethos about how this place is, how we're going to live, how we're going to represent ourselves. And I walked around and I saw that most people didn't live up to that ethos. Like if you go to whatever company, they had this mission statement on how we want to run our company. I made one for myself on how I want to be. And that is why if people can make up a mission statement, an ethos in which they want to live by, and every morning you wake up, you hold yourself accountable to that mission, not a company's, your own. Make up your own mission statement. What do you want to be in life? And once you do that, now you can work with somebody to get better. You can work with yourself to get better. But until you know what you want to stand for, you will always just be sitting down. You'll never stand for anything.
Our longtime listeners know how much we encourage a clear, personal vision. I suggest a powerful personal vision, the who I am becoming, will provide more traction than the traditional mission statement, which generally focuses more on what I do. But If David and I were out for a run together, I'd guess we'd probably agree the difference is more in word choice than in outcome. Number 3, cultivate mental toughness. This is the cornerstone of Goggins' philosophy. He encourages us to push ourselves beyond self-imposed limits, challenge our perceived capabilities, and develop an indomitable will to succeed. Now, David and I take different approaches to this, but both bring value in different ways. And frankly, I'm personally motivated by his approach. He pushes, no excuses, none. Variables are meaningless. The bottom line is the bottom line. Get it done. I love that. It's just not for everyone. In contrast, my PhD work, the research studies we did and the model we put together focused on the development of the concept of functional mental toughness, or FMT. While I love David's push and see it playing a valuable role for a subset of the population, including me at times, in our research, we looked at ways in which anyone in any situation could take specific, actionable steps to improve their mental toughness for a range of pursuits. I won't dig into those here, but we'll link to a previous episode that may be of interest. Number 4, challenge negative self-talk. Goggins advocates for reframing negative thoughts and beliefs by challenging self-limiting beliefs and replacing them not just with positive, but accurate personal statements. We can cultivate a mindset of self-belief and determination. Here he is talking about it.
But if I tell myself I'm strong, I have courage, I'm smart, and all these are lies, you continuously push that starting point backwards, right? So that starting point is the truth. The no fucking bullshit truth that only you can tell yourself. It's the starting point. The truth's the starting point.
Well said, David. The research backs up what he's saying here. Positive self-talk is rarely effective when we know the statements aren't true. There are many forms of self-talk, including instructional and motivational, associative and dissociative. However, for the vision he's discussing here, he's exactly right. You know when you're lying to yourself. Number 5, set audacious goals. Goggins believes in setting ambitious goals that stretch our limits and inspire growth. He encourages us to pursue goals that demand dedication, perseverance, and relentless pursuit. Our functional mental toughness model similarly places a high value on goals, as long as the emphasis shifts from goals to process orientation when you're actually in the midst of that specific pursuit. This helps tap into the growing data related to the challenge versus threat status that can kick in. You can kick yourself into a threat state if you focus too much on the goals when you're in the midst of that momentary approach. Now, before you start thinking this is an ad for David Goggins, let's take a critical look at a few important elements to consider about the way he looks at things. Number 1, his comments about average. Take a listen.
Putting that into actual work? No, man. No. That's where the demons come in. That's where you're like, I don't want to be better. I don't want to be better. If this is what it takes to be better, I don't want to be better. So that's why there's a lot of average. And it makes me so fucking mad. Every day I walk this earth and I see average all over the fucking place. And they want to ask me, how did you do it? I can't tell you how, because you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it.
As you can tell, I have immense respect for what he's done with his life. The way he's made a positive difference for so many coming from a very difficult childhood. The guy has enough tenacity to power a small city. But I'm curious, what is his better? Better is individualized. It's not me trying to be better than you. Rather, it's me trying to build on the person I am today for tomorrow. David is helping others do that in their lives. I wonder how he's doing it in his own life. I mentioned earlier that his race results are decent, but pretty typical for a top age grouper. Now, that pull-up record, that was pretty amazing, but it was also almost a dozen years ago. Now, most likely he has some things going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of, but it would be interesting to get a peek into those. As it stands, the majority of his public pursuits appear to be a rinse and repeat of last year, and the year before, and the year before that. Number 2, I'm curious if he ever feels trapped in his character, the character he's created. Psychologist James Marcia has identified 4 levels of identity creation. One of the least evolved is the state of foreclosure. This is where someone comes up with an identity early on in life and then rigidly claims to that identity without ever updating it. I don't think anyone would ever use the word cling in a phrase associated with Goggins, but you do frequently detect an undercurrent of, I cannot change no matter what, in his conversations. Now, obviously, he's acutely aware of how his life has changed positively in the last 25 years, and he doesn't want to go back there. But I wonder about going forward. The problem is his income is a direct reflection of his established persona. And I'm not sure whether those buying his books, watching his videos, and attending his keynotes would respond to a David Goggins who further expands his identity beyond the real-world superhero character. I'm one of those who hopes we get to find out. Lastly, is David someone you want to model your life after? If so, here are a few things you may want to ponder in the process. Now, even if some of the following makes you think twice, I still think he's a guy who's earned our respect and someone worth at least tapping into occasionally for some extra juice. Here's David.
Those who are part of my family, I give them everything they need so they can leave me the fuck alone. I make sure you're happy as fuck because I got to go to work. And I don't mean smoke jumping. I don't mean running. I mean all of it. It takes I can't have you in my fucking shit. Can't. So I know for me to have a family, I got to make sure that you realize I'm going to give you everything you need. So when you start bitching at me, I'm going to say, look, hang on. I dedicated my life to give you everything you need. I need this time right here for me to be the best I can be because this journey started without anybody. And I make sure everybody knows that who comes in my life. Think about it. I was left alone at a young age to figure this shit out. I figured it out for myself, and it's been very successful for myself. No one's going to come in here and fuck with my shit.
Now, I don't know David personally. Maybe he has a wonderful relationship with his wife, great relationship with his daughter, and has a core group of friends with whom he can be transparent without the camera running. I hope so. But statements like this do make me think of the CEO who works all hours of the day and then eventually wakes up realizing the ladder he or she climbed was leaning against the wrong wall. Here's David again.
And that's the harsh reality. I can't give you shit. You can't give them shit. We can give you ideas. At the end of the day, when I was losing the weight, I had to miserably wake up every morning in the cold because it was Indiana, November when it started. I was miserable. This is your new life. Take it or leave it. There's no happiness about it. There's no peace behind it. It sucks. It just fucking sucks. And that's the one thing, if I could teach anybody anything, it just fucking sucks. And it's going to continue to suck. And then one day you'll get to a special part in your life that it might get a little bit better.
When I hear clips like this, I just have to ask, where's the joy? In another interview, he says, I like to test myself as something I hate doing. Referencing running, he says a minimum of 12 miles a day. He goes on to say, I get no enjoyment, no light feeling from running. My legs hurt like hell and I hate every minute. Whew, I hate every minute. The functional mental toughness model integrates something called the head, heart, feet pathway. Just like Goggins encourages, it begins by stepping into the discomfort, the challenge. That's the head part. But then once you establish the head's decision that this is what I'm going to do, even when uncomfortable, even when challenging, then the next step integrates the heart. This is where we begin to either tune into the joyful moments that maybe we didn't previously recognize, or we purposefully bring them into that picture with us, creating that joyful piece. The last step of the head, heart, feet also overlaps with Goggins' guidance, as the feet represent automating the process, making it who we are and not simply what we do. I would say Goggins and I generally agree on parts 1 and 3. Where we diverge is part 2. And while I'll agree, it may need to be sacrificed in the short term, that joy piece, that's a pretty important element to making the most of this life over the long haul.
When I write these books, I go through and try to dumb down David Goggins. But I found something that most don't want to find. How can I speak to people and give them something from this crazy psychotic brain that I've developed? How can I give them that? But the barbaric life that I live, that you have to live, the almost obsession that you must have to be great, you can't put that shit in a fucking book, bro. Constantly disciplined, never going off the path. Whatever is injured on him, he figures a way. It's a conqueror's mindset. And very few people, if any, can really understand what that is. Like, I'm almost 50, and I've been this way for almost 30 years. Like, what do you do for fun? You never, these questions, I don't get them. I don't understand them.
Lastly, since we focus on health, wellness, and high performance here, I'd be negligent if we didn't at least touch on broader well-being and performance. David and I are about a decade apart in age. He's 49, I'm 58. But we've followed similar endurance sports journeys. If we were to race one another, as some have suggested, he would likely have the edge with the ultra running, while I would most likely be favored based on our historical race results when it comes to triathlons and running distances of a marathon or less. But perhaps the more important question is not who would win a head-to-head competition, but instead whether our individual approach to mental toughness, fitness, and life allows to continue competing in the decades that follow. That requires a different approach, one that I am slowly, very slowly, learning. And I hope David is also discovering that as we both move through this second half of life. Here's how he describes his running right now. I'm limping when I run. My body is so jacked up, so I'm focusing on how to get the best out of a broken body. Age 49, David's current age, was probably the best year in my entire life of racing. Now, the reasons for that are a story for another day, but it's tough seeing Mr. Goggins describing his training as focusing on how to get the best out of a broken body when he potentially, hopefully, has decades of running and racing ahead of him. And for the sake of everyone he's helped and continues to help along the way, I hope he's able to discover a new version of David Goggins, a new pathway to doing exactly that. Thanks for joining us here on the Catalyst 360 podcast. David Goggins most certainly qualifies as being a catalyst, and we're grateful for the positive impact he brought to the lives of so many over the years. If you're new to the Catalyst 360 podcast, there are 300 plus episodes that bring together the world's top athletes, researchers, and authors to the show, along with some short-form boost episodes to keep you rocking and rolling. And if you're looking to pursue your MBHWSC-approved coach certification or your functional mental toughness subspecialty, Catalyst Coaching Institute might be worth a look, as it is consistently rated among the nation's top programs. Reach out anytime to discuss results at catalystcoaching360.com or visit our institute site, catalystcoachinginstitute.com. A special thanks to the variety of resources from which we pulled these David Goggins interviews, including the Modern Wisdom and Huberman Lab podcast, along with various other interview videos made available by Mr. Goggins and others. And now, it's time to be a catalyst. This is Catalyst Coaching 360, Dr. Brad Cooper. I'll speak with you soon on the next episode of the Catalyst 360 podcast, or maybe over on the YouTube coaching channel.